title, and immediately Fundora establishing that long stick, and he believes in the moment. Many do.
Somebody come look at this. Somebody come look at this. Sebastian Fundora stops Keith one-time Thurman in the 6th round. I want to talk about this, and I want to speak on what happened, why it happened, and what the future looks like in the 154-pound weight division. Boxing. What's up, boxing world? This is Raw Boxing Magic. We back, and it's a movie. So, it went down last night. It didn't go down the way I expected it to, or maybe I would like it to have gone, right? But Sebastian Fundora is in the fight. He's working behind that jab like he's been in the last 2 fights. Keith Thurman comes out. Immediately, he can't find his range. He's trying to find an entry, and he's never able to commit to any punches or sit down on any punches because he's not comfortable with the range. And so he is immediately kind of like shelling up as soon as he throws a punch. And a lot of those punches was coming up short because he didn't cut the distance before he threw the shot. And also, you can see that it kind of was messing with Keith Thurman mentally, not being able to really use his lateral movement the way he wants to. The only way that he can use it is to like get away and evade punches and get away from Fundora. But usually, that's not all Keith Thurman's foot movement is used for. It's used for setting up shots and setting traps for people, making you walk into something big. He was not able to do that because obviously Fundora having an 80 to 81 inch reach and him being 6'6", that doesn't help that type of style. So initially, when I'm thinking about what Keith Thurman has done in the ring and what he's displayed against every fight we've ever seen him fight, I was taking in consideration of people that is his size. But it completely shifts when you have a guy like Sebastian Fundora who is this tall, this long. Here's the thing, though. I'll give Sebastian Fundora his credit. He definitely knows how to keep you on the outside and keep you on the end of that jab. And he's getting better at kind of timing shots. He likes to try to catch guys coming in because he knows that's what their whole thing is. The game plan. That's like the first battle is cutting the distance. Against other guys, when you're the same height as a guy, no one's really thinking about, oh, that's the first battle is cutting the distance. It just naturally happens, right? But with Sebastian Fundora, he knows that is the number one first battle that the person, the other fighter, the opposition has to make before they can get in. And so he's doing a great job at keeping you at that range and not allowing you to get in. And as I said before, you're dealing with someone with the frame of a heavyweight, essentially. It doesn't matter what weight he made. He has the frame of a heavyweight, and that means something. You know, there are weight classes for a reason. So when you got that much arm and velocity coming down on you, it's going to bust the opponent up, which is why I said in previous videos that you just cannot stand there and let him pepper you with shots, because although it doesn't look like it's a lot of oomph on him, a lot of power generated on the shots, you have to take into account how heavy the blow is, because he has the frame of a heavyweight as far as how long his limbs are. And Keith Thurman was able to land a few shots here and there, but he was never really able to get into a rhythm. It was in disarray the moment the fight began. But let's go into why Keith Thurman did not show up the best Keith Thurman he could have shown up. And it's not just about the age. A lot of people want to say, yeah, he's 37, that's what it was. It wasn't just that. Of course, you got to take that into account. But I'm looking at the shape that Keith Thurman showed up in. Keith Thurman weighed in at 152 pounds. He looked pretty good. He looked strong. You know what I'm saying? You've seen the six-pack and all of that. overnight and the 30 hours in between the fight, he put on a lot of weight. He rehydrated. He had to at least been 170, 171 pounds, 172 pounds by the night of the fight. I mean, as soon as I seen Keith Thurman, I pointed out that he looks thick around the midsection. You know, he just looked blown up. It was night and day from what we seen in the weigh-in, which is normal, but he put on a lot of weight, and it looks like a lot of water weight because you couldn't make out the abs anymore. He looked pudgy around the midsection. So I'm saying that to say this. In an interview with Sean Porter during the Porterway podcast, they asked him a few questions, and they asked him, what did you do different for this camp? What was different about this camp other than the 6'4" and 6'6" sparring partners that he had? And Keith Thurman went on to say,
different than previous camps. I don't know what made me do it, but I didn't work with Yo Murphy. You know, I was working with Yo Murphy in preparation for several of my camps and in preparation for the first Fundora fight. But just driving over the bridge and working with the strength and conditioning coach, I guess I stayed on the conditioning and I did my own strength training, but I didn't incorporate a strength coach into this
I
camp.
wish Sean Porter would have dove into that and asked him, like, what? Why? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. Why on one of the biggest fights of your life would you not go through strength and conditioning? Now, we're going to get back to that. The main word, conditioning. Keith Thurman gassed out in the 5th round. He started gassing out 4th, 5th round. It wasn't like he was hurt. He just started gassing out. And I think you could attribute that to him not having Yo Murphy, not having a strength and conditioning coach for this fight. You know what I'm saying? The conditioning is a huge factor, and he knew that, which is a telltale sign of why Keith Thurman kept hearkening on the idea of him knocking Sebastian Fundora out. That should have been a red flag for me immediately. Although I was one to say that I think that's his best chance of beating Fundora is knocking him out. A whole 12 rounds, not saying you couldn't pull it off, but that's going through hell and high water. So I was pretty confident that he could get the knockout because Sebastian Fundora has been susceptible to punches in the past. But when he got hit with those punches, those guys were a little bigger than Keith Thurman. They were a little taller. And as I said before, Sebastian Fundora has gotten a little better. He was a little bit tighter with his defense against Keith Thurman, even though Keith Thurman didn't get off that many shots. But the shots that he did get off, for the most part, Sebastian Fundora was defensively responsible. So it's a factor of him getting better, a little better, and him just utilizing his strength to his advantage. Again, Keith Thurman is 5'8". Sebastian Fundora is 6'6". If you're asking me, let's go back. Also, Keith Thurman really needed this money. He really needed a payday because he went in this other interview and he spoke to this guy and he told him that he had to sell some assets before the Fundora fight.
And I didn't get to fight. I didn't get to make money. I had to sell a few assets to stay afloat. But we got by.
So things got really, really chippy for Keith Thurman. And I'm wondering, is that why you didn't get the strength and conditioning coach? Could you not afford it? I mean, because if you have to sell assets, you're pretty down bad. Like, not, you know what I mean? Like, it's getting there. And he said he had to sell the assets to stay afloat. So I'm like, did he not have the money for the strength and conditioning coach? And was he really just banking on this lucky punch on an opponent that you can't even really reach? And another thing, you know, he was doing a lot of headhunting. He did throw some body shots, but nowhere near the muster that he was throwing to the head. That was just one factor I wanted us to look at. when people would say, oh, this was just a money grab for Keith Thurman. I do believe that Keith Thurman believed he could win this fight, or he had a chance to win this fight. I think it was not until he got into the ring that he knew that he was in some trouble. I just seen the look in his face. I never seen that look before on Keith Thurman. All right. And then you go back and then you think about your preparation. You're only as good as your preparation and training. And he knows in the back of his mind he did not do everything he could do to fully prepare as far as strength and conditioning goes. That is the difference between you gassing out in the 5th round and at least keeping that energy and keeping that endurance and that conditioning up to at least the 9th round. You know what I'm saying? That's a big difference. And I believe the strength and conditioning would have made that difference, 37 or not. But let's go into the fact of the size discrepancy and why I am not impressed with this win for Sebastian Fundora. Where have we come in boxing where we need a spectacle like Sebastian Fundora to be bigger than all his opponents, have an advantage over all his opponents? How low have we fallen in the sport of boxing to where we accept this? This is clearly cheating. This is not fair. A person with a frame the same reach as Deontay Wilder is fighting 154-pounders, y'all. In the lead up to this fight, I seen Sebastian Fundora hop on a scale, checking his weight. He was 162, 163 pounds. All right. So I don't want to hear nobody say, oh, no, he can't make those weights. He can't make those. No, because if he's cutting down to 163 and before the fight, that means he's at least walking around 168, 170 something. You understand what I'm saying? He's at least walking around. I'll give him a break. Let's just say he's walking around 170. I'm sure it's more than that. But he's walking around at 170 pounds and he's cutting down to 54, right? And that's cool because a lot of boxers do that. But they're nowhere near as big as he is. So I am not impressed with a person that holds every fighter they fight at a disadvantage. Move up in weight. I would be impressed if you did that with Caleb Plant. I would be impressed if you did that with Benavidez. I would be impressed if you did that with these guys, maybe the guy who beat Caleb Plant. These guys that are bigger men, 168, 175, that's where you belong. You're beating up on 154, and it's so apparent. The shots were not that clean. Keith Thurman kept his hands up most of the night, right? And that was to some of his detriment because he would kind of like curl over and cover his face, not being able to see. And Sebastian Fundora would come right from under with those uppercuts, and it bust his face up. It wasn't even like it was these devastating shots, but that's how heavy the blows are. And even through the block, they were causing marks on Keith Thurman, albeit Keith Thurman has the type of face that's kind of easy to beat up. He has that type of face that bruises easy. It's not impressive beating up on guys that much smaller than you. It's just, and where have we come in boxing when nobody wants to talk about it? Everybody want to talk about how much better Sebastian Fundora has got. Okay, you got better in being able to use the advantage that you already have. And it's not fair. You're not thinking about it. If somebody, say the 80-inch, his arm was thrown like a spear at somebody, it's going to do much more damage than somebody with a 69 or 70-inch arm reach. It's just a different velocity. It's a different weight. It's way more bone density coming down on you. It's way more muscle. It's way more everything. It is not fair. A person that big is meant to be in higher weight classes fighting bigger men. We have never seen him in the ring with somebody his size. And the first time he was in the ring with somebody around his size, the guy named Clark, I believe, he was about 6'4". He was able to, I believe he beat Sebastian Fundora, but he was able to box and move and be able to get in there because he had size enough. Mendoza, he landed a good punch, but he was getting peppered too When you look at all these guys' face, he's beating them up. He's beating them up. So, yes, he's gotten better, but it is still not fair. He is not fighting any of these fighters on an even playing field. And for anybody acting like that's cool, it just shows you that the boxing game is turning to trash. And then you got guys like Shakur Stevenson complaining about how big Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia is, when you got guys like Keith Thurman in the ring with Sebastian Fundora, bro. You got guys like Tim Tszyu in the ring with Sebastian Fundora. He's bigger than all of these people and busting them up easily. It's not fair. Weight classes are there for a reason. If you walk around at 170-something pounds, fight and campaign at higher weight classes. Then I'll be impressed if you get victories up there. Right now, you fighting little guys, I am not impressed. And anybody who is impressed with this ought to be ashamed of yourself. It's not about being a fan of this person or being a fan of that person. I've been saying this about Sebastian Fundora. Well before he was even anybody ever thought he was going to fight Keith Thurman. I've been saying this about him. It's not fair. And we can't just justify it like it's okay and he's this great fighter, because he's not. He's not, because he's not fighting anybody on an even playing field. He is not a great fighter. And he will never be until he moves up in weight. Period. I understand it's a spectacle. Ooh, who can beat Fundora, the giant? Oh, who can beat Fundora? This is not the arena. This is not the gladiator where you put somebody up against a damn lion or a bear. This is the sweet science. People have families. And you putting a guy in there with somebody with the frame of a heavyweight. Guys that's 5'8", 5'9", 5'10". It's ridiculous. And something needs to be done about it. Y'all remember Fight Night? Fight Night, you couldn't even make a character as tall as Sebastian Fundora is in the lower weights. It won't even let you. You know why? It's unheard of. It's not it's not supposed to be. But we are accepting it. Just like we accept a lot of madness. We don't care about PD users anymore. Somebody like Ryan Garcia gets praised for cheating, and no one cares about the clean guy. They hate the clean guy, but love the dirty guy. And it's the same idea with Sebastian Fundora. Through his whole career, he is cheating. And I don't want to hear that, oh, he can make the weight. Yes, by some freakish way, he can make the weight. Yes, because the attributes matter more. He still gets to utilize his height, his reach. The night of the fight, he was at least 180-something pounds. It's not fair. Come on, y'all. I mean, stop me when I'm lying. Tell me I told a lie in the comment section. But again, it was factors in this. It was the factor of Keith Thurman not letting it all hang out in the gym, not doing everything he could to prepare for this, allowing, when it got postponed the first time, when Sebastian Fundora had the bicep injury, and when they were supposed to fight last year of October, Keith Thurman also said he went on a binge, and he started binge eating, and he gained weight, and he had to go on a 21-day fast of only raw fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, to get back down in weight. But at 37, to be sending the body through all of those changes, blowing up in weight and doing all these things is not helpful. So, him going into depression and coming out of depression and then jumping back in, and at this point he needs to feed his family, because obviously he said he had to sell assets. So it was just one of those things. But this is one thing I will say. I don't think you should count Keith Thurman out and say he should never fight again or he should retire based off this fight, because this was a hell of a fight to win. This was an unfair fight and an uphill battle the entire time. Right? He was never supposed to beat Sebastian Fundora. It's designed for nobody in that weight class to be able to beat Sebastian Fundora. It is just not fair, and it is not on an even playing field. It is a mismatch when you have him fighting against guys that are much, much smaller than him. I think Keith Thurman has a couple fights left in him against guys his size. And you'll see a bigger difference. But Keith Thurman has to be dedicated like I said, I don't know why he didn't get the strength and conditioning coach. I don't know if it was money or whether it was just one of those things that he was trying not to sustain an injury because he knows he's injury prone. So that's kind of like in the forefront of his mind a lot. And I think he needs to go back to the drawing board and deal with that philosophy as well, to not trick himself out of pushing himself as hard as he has to during training. By now, y'all should know my temperature. I don't do no faking or no fraud, and that ain't my texture. I love y'all. I'm out. So you know